video did illustrate 2 points. One, the law of diminishing returns. And two, that most of us are not limited by what we can do, by what we think we can't do. And so I think both of those points are very vivid there. Most of us are limited not by what we think we can do, but what we think we cannot. So well illustrated there. Hey, this is a ruse. Coming down here to speak is just a ruse for me to be able to come down and have dinner with my daughter. And so that was a real treat for me tonight. She's a first-year law student here because of the critical shortage of lawyers in America. And so I'm so glad she's here working on that. And I shared it a little bit about my family last time, so I just briefly, I won't do that this time except to say that I've got another daughter that's 24 now and is at Visible Music College where she's honing her soft, unemployable skills. And then, my son is he's a senior at UW Green Bay, where I told you, I think I told most of you before too, that this past semester he just finished his 3rd round of chemo for testicular cancer, and God has been very gracious in that process and has caused us to have a lot of very deep and meaningful conversations, as well as a Christmas picture where I shaved my head because I didn't want him to be the best looking male in the family. And so we took that picture together and took a little that journey together. His hair is all grown back, mine hasn't. I do not think that's fair. And I want you to know that I did not appreciate your response to that old people invite, as next week I get my ARP card officially as well. And if you're lucky, you'll be my age one day. So, and I'm not kidding about that. Hey, I did wrestle back here. I had 2 other brothers. One who was also been the assistant coach here at Wisconsin, my twin brother, and then was the first alternate on the Olympic team in '84, and then coached at Purdue, and now was with USA Wrestling. And I, over the last couple of years, have had the privilege of reconnecting with the sport. And it has a lot to do with what I want to share with you tonight, because I'm reconnecting really with probably some of the most insecure people that exist in the sports world, and that's the folks in the wrestling world. And I say that because we're the one sport that somehow to justify or to help understand our identity, we make fun of another sport. And because every wrestler, every wrestling coach can finish these sentences. Boys play basketball, men wrestle. And they can all finish it too. You play basketball, you don't play wrestling. Here's one. It says, the shirt, the front of the shirt says wrestling. It's in the back, it says, it's what men do during boys basketball season. We can all finish those sentences. And it's interesting, so I ask people, and I ask, if we're going to make a joke about that, I'd really like to understand something. Say, if men wrestle, then what does it mean to be a man? One of the things about the eulogy of Joe Paterno that I've heard was that Joe, it said, he helped build men. And my response was, really? Is that true? And it was not an indictment, it's a puzzlement. I said, really? Because if you build things, to build something right, you need a plan, don't you? You need a blueprint. And I said, so what is the blueprint? What does it mean, then, to be a man? And I submit to you this, it is the greatest crisis in our culture today, is the issue of what it means to be a man. And the second greatest crisis that we're seeing that comes along, and I really believe this, is the issue of what it means to be a woman, and the things that are imposed upon you. And I want to take you through the 3 greatest lies that I think we teach every boy about what it means to be a man, and the 3 lies that I think we teach women. The lies that we teach boys about manhood are right square in our face, and every one of us have bought into it, and every one of us are affected by it. The lies about female and womanhood are not quite as obvious, but they are just as insidious and take us just as far off the track. And we're going to get to where I want to get to, but if we don't get there by first identifying why this is so important, then it just becomes some more data, and I hope that I don't then just become like Charlie Brown's teacher. And when we're done, all you've heard is wah, 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 and then we go. I know this, about 90% of what I say you'll forget. That's just, when you hear, you forget. When you see, you remember. When you do, you understand. But when you know why, you commit. And I want you to know why this is so significant. Because if we're going to ask you to commit to something, you need to know why. And I really believe that the lies we teach boys about men have such great impact and such great effect on every woman that if we could solve this issue, we would solve most, if not all, of the major problems in our culture. If we could get this right, if we could get both of those things right. But follow me with this, because we bought, especially for us boys, but you as girls saw this, you know the effect of it. But we bought that first lie by second grade, and the lie is taught to every one of us on every playground in every recess in America. And the lie was this, that somehow you were affirmed, and your manhood was affirmed by your physical ability. That the kid who could run a little faster, the kid who could hang on the monkey bars, the kid who could catch the down and out, that kid was affirmed. And the boy who was a late bloomer, the boy who was a little bit more emotionally connected, a little bit more wired towards the arts, and if you were one of them, you knew that somehow you didn't measure up. And we bought that. And every one of us bought that lie by second grade. In every playground we're taught it. And if you were one of those kids that were on the periphery, if you were a late developer, even if you're an athlete today, if you were a late developer, you still feel like you got to prove yourself because of that. And every one of us were taught that. And the second lie we were taught by 8th grade. And that lie had something to do with using some girl to meet some kind of physical need or masculine insecurity. And you listen to the jokes in the locker room, you listen to the jokes in the locker room today, you listen to the conversations on what guys will talk and how they will talk about women, and that lie is pervasive. And it doesn't make you a man, it makes you a user. But somehow we were taught that our masculinity was somehow tied with connected with some kind of female conquest. And we were taught that by 8th grade. And the third lie we were taught along the way, not quite at the same time, but it had something to do with wealth and accumulation of title or status. And when you think about that, who buys that now? And the longer you buy a lie, the greater the effect it has on you. And who is impacted by that lie the most? What group of males are impacted by that lie the most? Physical ability, sexual conquest, material accumulation. Who is it? The pro athlete. Is it not? The pro athlete buys that lie that works for them the longest, but at some point it breaks down. At some point, I don't care how good you are, they'll start drafting your position. Your physical body starts to go. At some point, sexual conquest has a diminishing return, and now we've got problems. And at some point we say, is this all there is? And we teach boys along the way. And thus, what if any one of you in here ever heard these 3 words, the 3 words that harm a young boy the most? That if these words were ever used with you, you know what it is. But the 3 words were this: be a man. Be a man. Any one of you as a kid, somebody say that to you? What was the environment of that? Think of the setting for that, when that was said. What was that about? It was always about stopping something. Stop crying, stop whining, stop feeling, stop with anything that we connect with femininity. Stop with it, as if emotions will feminize. I told you, emotions don't feminize boys, they humanize them. But somehow we tell them to stop, and we sever our heads from our hearts, and we live from the neck up. And then there's this low-grade anger that sits in every guy that's happened. But I say, if the pro athlete buys it the longest, at what point do they cash in the check that they have to pay for that? Usually about the time their career ends. And there's a reason why the divorce, 2 years after a professional athlete's career, 2 years after their career, 80% are one or more of these. They are either divorced, bankrupt, or jobless. 80%. You buy the lie longest, and usually you marry somebody then that buys that lie too. And now, you're not who I thought you were, because I wanted you to be something too. It is broken. And the lies that we teach women about what it is, girls